Member for Euroa.
Speaker, thank you. And I must honestly express so much gratitude to the member for Macedon for moving this delusional MPI. She has done what no other member of the Labor Party in my time in Parliament has been able to do, and that's cause a dispute in the National Party room because we all wanted the opportunity to talk on this fantastic MPI, which just shows how incredibly out of touch and deluded the Labor Party is with the sentiment of regional Victoria. You clearly know that you have an enormous problem in regional Victoria, and the fact that the Premier of this state will not leave the city without very controlled media opportunities, without being completely wrapped in cotton wool, without telling anyone where he is going, is demonstrative of the fact that you guys know you are stuffed in regional Victoria, because people know your record because we can see it and we are living it on a daily basis. And the fact that you think that you deserve to be congratulated.
Ask the members to direct her comments through the chair.
The fact that those on the opposite side believe that Labor believes that it should be congratulated for a record on jobs, on roads and transport infrastructure, on tourism and major events, on education and health, is not just out of touch, it is absolutely laughable. Yeah. COVID restrictions have killed businesses in regional Victoria. Look at the interstate migration figures. In the year leading up to June 2021, 18,300 people left Victoria, mostly to go to Queensland. Former Mayor in my area, Scott Upston, an amazing man, dedicated to the youth in Benalla. He ran a gym. He could not take it anymore. He left our community and he has gone to New South Wales to escape this government and its decisions. Victoria is the second worst anywhere in the nation for business confidence. Across Victoria, regional Victoria, severe labour shortages are absolutely crippling our businesses. And meanwhile, this government is applying a giant new housing tax, in regional Victoria, where housing affordability and land availability is at virtually crisis levels. What's that going to do to help people on the public housing waiting list? What does that do to renters? It drives up costs that people can ill afford at a time when they have been belted around the head by your restrictions with COVID. You're closing the native timber industry. And then the member for Macedon, she's disappeared from her own MPI. She comes in here talking about how proud she is with agriculture. Well, last week we discover she's slashing 145 jobs from the Agricultural Department on top of the 47 last year that were mainly soil researchers that they described as being surplus to requirements. Roads and transport infrastructure, do you really want to have a debate about that? I actually put this MPI up on my Facebook page last night because I thought some regional Victorians would like to have some input. Gemma says the roads are appalling. David Bell says regional Victoria, I don't even think the Labor Party knows it exists. Cameron says yes, congratulations on more regional potholes and ever-increasing costs. Lee says, can they come out and drive some of our rural roads? Hey, maybe even just the Hume. Such a failure as a freeway. Jason says they are delusional. Never seen the country roads and state government assets in such a bad state. Frank says, oh my God, they are deluded. Where do we start? How about my buying a return V-Line ticket last Thursday as I needed to be in Melbourne, only to be left at the Euroa station with no train? Scott says, roads, they're doing great. Greg says, time for them to get off their backsides and have a look. But then again, they don't want to hear what country Victorians have to say. Andrew says, maybe bring up the non-existent Victorian youth strategy the Victorian youth sector has been missing for well over a year after extensive youth consultation in 2020. Doug says, all happens in Melbourne, but not country where it got to happen. Just not good enough The roads, they're very dangerous to drive on. There are potholes everywhere. Do you really want to have a discussion about roads and transport infrastructure in regional Victoria? You're crazy if you do, because if you leave the city boundaries, which most of you never do, you will discover that roads across regional Victoria are falling apart. Our national freeway...
Just ask the member to pause for a second. The member for Yangon on a point of order.
I need some respite from the rant, but could you please ask on the point of order, ask the member for Euroa to please refer her remarks through the chair. She is just really being disrespectful to the chair.
Order. I have asked the member just to refer her comments through the chair.
Our national freeway, the Hume Freeway, is falling apart. There are rough surface signs and speed restrictions right across it, and you'll find that anywhere you go across regional Victoria. If the Labor Party actually left the city, they would realise the horrific state of regional roads. Speaker, the Labor Party has cut the road asset maintenance budget by 25% just last year. We've got critical infrastructure like the Kilmore bypass in my area, which we started on, Speaker, back in 2014. They have done nothing in the last 8 years, absolutely nothing. You've got the Shepparton bypass, where the federal government committed $208 million in April 2019 to the first stage of that project, and the state government, the state Labor government, couldn't cough up the 20% required of them to make a project that has been waiting for decades to happen. Where are they on that remaining 20%? Nowhere to be seen. They are so out of touch, Speaker. Most of the regional rail work that is being done at the moment is funded by the federal government. All the state government has to do is manage it. Now, we had a situation recently where the upgrades on the Shepparton line were occurring. They scheduled it, Speaker, right in the middle of grain harvest, cutting off access to the Grain Corp silos, and when local farmers pointed it out, they asked them to shift the grain harvest. That is how much they understand country Victoria. You might as well hold back the tide. They wanted them just to shift the grain harvest. Are you kidding? Like, this stuff couldn't be made up. It is bizarre. Tourism and major events. What tourism? What major events? They've all been cancelled in the last 2 years. People are scared to schedule an event because they don't want it to get cancelled, because they risk losing thousands of dollars. Now, education. The member for Macedon says that there are more schools in Victoria than anywhere else. Newsflash, you are the only state in Australia who has decreased secondary schools, the number of secondary schools in this state, in any state or territory. It is written in the Productivity Commission's report, if you don't believe me. You're doing things like amalgamating schools in Shepparton, stripping that community of any choice whatsoever, and you think you're investing in education. We have the lowest state funding per student in Australia of any state or territory.
The Minister of Community Sport on a point of order.
Sorry, Speaker, I'm sorry to do it, but I'm afraid the member for Euroa is not a quick learn. Again, Can you please ask her to direct her comments through the chair?
I hold my previous point of order.
Refer to the Labor Party to remind everyone that this is their record. Labor is giving the lowest state funding in Australia per student in government schools than anywhere else in Australia. Mental health in students. There are 20,000 more young people in Victoria accessing Medicare for mental health services as a consequence of the lockdowns we've been through, and the Andrews government at every turn has opposed the measures that we've called for, which would deliver mental health practitioners in every school. Health. We have more than 80,000 Victorians on the public health waiting list. I very quickly want to go to ambulance, Speaker. Member for Buninyong might spit her coffee over these statistics. Statewide, the average response time when we left office, when they decried the performance, was 13 minutes and 24 seconds for Code 1. Today, it is 15 minutes and 11 seconds. And the ambulance is responding to less than half of the call-outs they were responding when we left government. You are responding to fewer people in a much, much greater length of time. Spit your coffee over that. That is the record of those opposite. You think that you're delivering a fantastic outcome for regional Victorians in ambulance services. The statistics say otherwise. The statistics say something else about public hospital waiting lists. Speaker, I have story after story from my electorate of people who are suffering under the Labor Party.
Member for Bass.